Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats. And today I'm bringing you a review of a book that I honestly thought was kind of underwhelming, and that is The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. Now, this is the first book in a new middle grade urban fantasy, I would call it, series by an author who's known for her YA books. I've never read any of her YA books. This is the first book of hers I've read. I received a digital review copy of this book via NetGalley, and I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I feel a little guilty about that 2 out of 5 star rating because it might not truly be bad enough to really warrant such a low rating, but it committed the sin of seeming like it was going to be way more interesting than it actually ended up being, and I could never quite forgive it for that. Besides, there were a variety of things that Bracken did here that kind of annoyed me. But to begin with, young Prosper Redding seems to be the singular failure of the illustrious Redding clan of Red Hood, the town that bears their name, and over which their family has lorded for generations since its founding. Red Hood is both familiar and bizarre, with strange traditions connected to the Redding family history, and it's a town that seems to exist under the thrall of Prosper's terrifying and powerful grandmother. I thought that Red Hood would have made for a wonderful, unique setting to a middle grade urban fantasy novel, and these initial chapters feel laced with ominous fairy tale. Unfortunately, most of the book doesn't actually take place in Red Hood, and maybe I was reading too much into those perceived fairy tale references because they ceased to crop up as soon as we left Red Hood. So, after a bizarre and occult incident at the ancestral Redding family home, Prosper is whisked away to where? Salem, of course, where a man who introduces himself as Prosper's long-lost uncle Barnabas promises to keep Prosper safe from his maniacal grandmother and help him exorcise the demon that long ago Honor Redding made a deal with, the demon that is now apparently living inside of Prosper. There is an info dump about the demon worlds, various other worlds, and all things magical. By the way, the big reveal that magic exists is one of my least favorite fantasy tropes of all time. But anyways, Prosper, who is now struggling for control over his mind and body with the malefactor Alastor, starts to attend school in Salem with Uncle B's estranged daughter, Nell, who, by the way, inherited witch powers from her late mother. But it turns out that without the Redding legacy looming over him or his history as a known failure, Prosper starts to actually succeed at school in ways that he never has at home. It's Nell who's the outcast here, and Prosper is determined to help her since he's been there too and he knows what it feels like. Meanwhile, there's like a bat-winged kitten and a haunted house attraction where the spooks are 95% fake. There's an obligatory school production of The Crucible, although I did appreciate that the casting controversy is about whether or not Nell should be allowed to audition for the male lead. And there's the even more obligatory surprise monster attacks. You get the picture. So basically all of the originality that had me really intrigued in the first couple chapters was lost, and I mourned for its loss. And there was an attempt to turn the Prosper-Alastor relationship into like a supernatural buddy comedy that was really unconvincing for me. Now there is a cliffhanger ending, and I'm going to address it, but I'm going to do so without spoilers. Full disclosure, cliffhanger endings usually really work on me, and by work, what I mean is they make me want to read the second book more than I otherwise would have. I actually went into this book not knowing whether or not it would stand alone as a story. Goodreads lists it as the first in a series, but no other description that I'd found provided more information on that. So without the positive knowledge that this was the first in a multi-volume story arc, I was falsely lulled by elements of this book that feel like they belong in a standalone. What draws me through a multi-book arc is ultimately the characters. I actually really love first books in series because they introduce us to protagonists who have so far to go on their journeys, and these first books make me care so deeply about where those characters are coming from. And I felt like the real heart of The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding, where it actually has emotional weight, is in Prosper's growing confidence in his own abilities and also in his relationship with Nell. But that character development arc feels like it belongs to a standalone story. A standalone story that would have reached its natural conclusion by the end of this book, except for all of this overcomplicated magic intrigue stuff that I couldn't bring myself to actually care about. That's not to say the character development was not good. In many ways it was. I just felt like it wasn't enough to justify a full series following the adventures of Prosper and Nell. Actually, right up until the end of the book, I was sort of expecting that one more chapter of Revelations and an epilogue would wrap the whole thing up, and only after stumbling off that metaphorical cliff at the end of the book did I look back and realize how much plot Alexandra Bracken had started to build up for the series. Plot that I didn't care about and ultimately hadn't been paying much attention to. So this cliffhanger actually failed for me because it did not leave me wanting to read book 2. Finally, it seems really important for me to mention that The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding is definitely a seasonal Halloween read. So many of the trappings of the story feel like they came from your seasonal Halloween pop-up shop that, like said pop-up shop, I can't imagine it having a whole ton of appeal during the rest of the year. So if you're looking for a Halloween read for the kids, by all means this will do the job, but it wasn't really what I was hoping for. P.S. One more pet peeve. I cannot stand it when fantasy authors have characters writing in Shakespearean-era English but can't be bothered to actually get it right or make it convincing. I wanted to fly at all of Alice Storr's early dialogue with a big red marker and just rewrite it, but I couldn't because I was reading it on my Kindle. Anyhow, that's what I thought of The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. I'm aware that I'm probably a minority opinion here at this point. A lot of the early reviews I've seen have been very positive, but let me know if you're reading this, if you're planning on reading it, whether you like it or not. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.